He and I are pretty inseparable these days. Like I said, in the beginning, it was not like that. I didn't even want
Mhm.
to hold him. Oh, sorry. And as a mother, that's heart-wrenching to have those feelings towards your child. And I remember he was probably about 4.5 or 5, and I was on the better end of the healing. And I remember the Holy Spirit just washed over me. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, bub, do you know how happy I am that Jesus gave you to me and how much I love you?" And the look on his face, it was like something broke off of him.
Mm.
It was like the enemy had molded something onto him. But when I spoke that truth from the Lord over him, the enemy's arrow that was meant for
Mm.
destruction fell off.
Welcome back to Living the Grace Life. I'm your host, Jennifer Sakata, and you've made your way to the corner of real grace for your real life. Real life takes us to a topic that affects 1 in 7 women, and very likely more than that. Yet it's still shrouded in silence. Postpartum depression. Now, I want to say at the front that for some of you, this episode may trigger some difficult memories or current fears or a barrage of questions that can feel incapacitating. If that's the case, please go at your own pace, whether you listen or not, and honor what your mind, body, and soul most need right now. Postpartum depression is real and it's far more common than we realize. In this episode, we'll be unpacking what postpartum depression looks like, how it affects not just mothers, but families as a whole, and most importantly, how grace, both giving it to yourself and receiving it from others, can play a transformative role in the healing process. My guest today is Amanda Scarborough, recent author of A Beautiful War. At first glance, her book is about postpartum depression, and for sure it is. But digging deeper, it's an invitation to find our identity in Jesus, come what may. Trusting in Jesus doesn't mean the war won't come or that the fires won't rage. It means he is first on the battlefield, readied with his armor of grace to fight for you and those you love. So take a deep breath and let's start this journey together. Amanda, welcome to Living the Grace Life.
Thank you, Jennifer. I don't even need to talk.
Oh, no, we got more to go, friend. Lots to come. Oh, we are definitely wading into very deep waters today. There is no doubt about that. But first, tell us a little bit about Amanda Scarborough today and that beautiful family you call yours.
We live on about 50 acres in our small little town. We don't have any animals, just a little French bulldog that is spoiled rotten. Our 4 kids are all different ages. They range from 11 to 31. So we have a wide range.
You can't go on yet. You have a 31-year-old? You don't look like you have a
Yes.
31. For
Yes.
those of you who are just listening, Amanda does not look at all like she could possibly have a 31-year-old unless she gave birth when she was like 6 months old or something.
I'm knocking on the door of 50.
Welcome to the 50s, girl.
Yeah. So, but my 2 oldest girls, I did not birth them. My husband and I got custody of them when they were about 3 and 7.
Okay.
I've raised them for the last probably 24 years or so. And so then him and I together had 2 sons. And
Okay.
so the 2 oldest are 4 years apart. And the third and the fourth are 8 years apart. So,
Girl, you've been doing this mama thing for a really long time. Oh my goodness. And you have an incredible story, which we're about to unwrap in a little bit. You have just written A Beautiful War, which is about your journey through postpartum depression and into healing. It's a unique name. Tell us about where the name came from. Why A Beautiful War?
it's funny, I started reading a lot just to escape. It was one of the tools that I used just to get out of my own world into someone else's
Mm,
world,
mhm.
and there was a song that someone referenced in one of the books, and it was called "A Beautiful War" by Kings of
Mm,
Leon, and it really struck a chord with me because through the healing journey and really through the postpartum depression, it was war. I was fighting a spiritual warfare.
mm,
I was fighting a mental warfare. Once the healing journey was over and I was able to look back, there was such beauty and grace in how the Lord carried me. Even in war, there can be beauty, and so hence
mm.
the title, A Beautiful War.
It seems especially appropriate for your journey. I can't wait for my listeners to get their hands on it and read it too. I am not typically a fast reader. This is probably a weird
Mhm.
thing, right, for a writer and
No.
speaker to say, but it takes me a long time sometimes to read. And Amanda, I read through your book in 2 sittings. That almost never happens
I
because
love
the
that.
way you told your story was so vulnerable, honest, and truthful, but it also was so filled with hope, even in the dark places. I couldn't wait to see what God was going to do in this really hard
Mm.
journey you were willing to share. But before we get into a little bit more of that story, let's have some definitions first. I think we hear these words, but we don't really understand what they mean. So, what is perinatal postpartum depression?
The perinatal depression is basically a form of depression that happens while you're pregnant.
Mm,
And so you hear of the postpartum, which is the so-called baby blues, and sometimes the more severe cases after the birth. And it can take 18 months to 2 years to even just come out of
mm,
that.
hmm
And so then when you add the perinatal, which starts when the baby's in the womb, that's a whole nother
mm.
avalanche that falls into the postpartum and creates an even bigger mess mentally.
That's an interesting choice of words that you use, avalanche. As I was preparing for today, that is that image and tidal wave, the two of those
Mm,
kept coming together. And I thought, that's probably an accurate description of
yeah,
emotionally, physically, spiritually what is happening. We see just the
right,
little tip of the iceberg, but underneath all of that, there is a
right.
lot that's going on. So, what are some of the unique characteristics or symptoms, maybe based on your own experience, that you've observed?
You have your typical signs, the isolation, the sadness, the tiredness, that kind of thing. But there's also a deeper layer that no one talks about. And it's the mental warfare that's going on in your mind. When I found out I was pregnant, it began because he was a surprise. We were not trying, we were done. And then you're like,
Famous last words, right?
exactly. It was, for me, it was detrimental. I was like, I'm his mother. I'm carrying life. And then at the same time, I'm also wishing that I would miscarry.
Mm,
It was one extreme to another. And that started the moment I found out I was pregnant. And then knowing that I'm going to have to tell my husband and friends and family, and they're going to want to be excited. And here I am faking it till you make it kind of thing when you're not really excited about it. And then that has its own shame and guilt. It's an effect that just keeps getting layer
mm,
upon layer and just keeps getting deeper. Then once you have the baby, all these contradictory thoughts, it just it's debilitating. It's very
mhm,
debilitating.
mhm. Now, all this time, you've waited about the dream that's finally come true,
Mhm.
but to then be walloped with these completely unexpected emotions and response to
Right.
what ordinarily would be good news, but all of a sudden isn't. Now,
Right.
you talk about in your book too, you describe the fact that you grew up as a Christian. You came from a
Mhm.
very deeply committed, devoted to Jesus place. And so I would imagine these unexpected feelings were also laced with shame, with, wait a minute, I'm a follower of Jesus. How could I be experiencing this? Unwrap that for us a little bit.
I think first off, we have to give ourselves grace
Mm,
because we are human and know that the Lord sees you and he's with you. He doesn't want you to sit in that shame and that guilt because that's where the enemy can attack us and try and break us.
mm,
We focus on the shame and the guilt if I was a better Christian, I wouldn't be feeling this way. And that's not the case. I had expectations on this last pregnancy because, to be honest, my very first pregnancy was phenomenal. When I tell you I glowed and the delivery was perfect and
All the things.
it was like I couldn't have dreamed of a better pregnancy and delivery with my first one. And so I was expecting that for my second one. But with this last one, it was the complete opposite. I ended up having to have an emergency C-section. There was a whole slew of things that went
Mm,
wrong during the pregnancy. Oh my gosh, is he gonna die?
mm,
Being excited and then being utterly shamed that I'm thinking these thoughts at the same time. Being a Christian and having that, and I'm warring against myself. You're horrible. You're a mother. You shouldn't be thinking these things.
mm,
But you really have to let go of the expectation. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned through this journey is to let go of my expectations and trust that the Lord already has gone before me. He's already seen what's happened. He already knew the thoughts that I was going to be thinking, and he's there to show me the truth in that. And he's there to love me through it, and he's there to correct my thinking and point it towards him instead of
mm.
to the lie.
I think you, as you started describing this, it reminds me that there are these emotions and feelings we put in the acceptable category in terms of our
Right.
life with God or even just our life with other people. There are certain experiences of emotion that are okay, and then there are those that are not. But the invitation of God's grace is to bring it all
Mm,
to Him and to
right.
trust that He is not, as you just mentioned, taken off guard by it. Take us to that night when these dark subconscious thoughts are bubbling to the surface and you are literally caught between what you think you should be thinking and what you actually are thinking. The night you were ready to take your son's life and your own. What was
Mhm.
going on for you? Tell us what pulled you back from the edge.
You mentioned earlier that the postpartum uh, affects the mother, but then it also affects parts of the family. And one of the greatest things that the enemy tries to do is cause division in the family. There's this whole backstory that leads up to this moment and is part of the healing journey as I move forward from that moment. One of those things is I was adopted when I was 3 days old. Growing up, I never had any blood relatives or
Mm,
blood family, quote unquote, the real kind of family, which is a lie from the enemy because it was a very much a
agreed.
real family
Hmm.
and a real
Yes.
love.
Yes.
And when I found out I was pregnant with our first son, I was ecstatic
Mm.
because I was going to experience something that was mine. When I got pregnant with Dax, who's 11 now, the enemy shot a dart and was like, "You're pregnant with this son because your first son is gonna die."
Oh,
And
goodness.
that
Oh, my.
did the whole number on me, and
Mm,
so
mm,
being pregnant with this child and then trying protected my first child, my
mhm.
first son, and so while I was pregnant, he started having real, like, bad headaches
Mm.
because he have a brain tumor. Is he gonna die? Is this
Yes,
it?
that barrage of question.
And so that compounded, and then I was physically tired. I was emotionally tired, battling the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows,
Pregnancy things, right?
just that every mother goes through. But when you add all those other layers
Mm,
to the top of it, it just makes the weight even heavier.
sure.
And after I had Dax, my mom thankfully moved in with us because I'd had the emergency C-section with him, and she came to help and everything. And so she stayed with us for a couple weeks, and then she had to get back to her life. But I was really struggling. I didn't wanna be alone in the house by myself. Just
Mm,
the fear and the anxiety was debilitating. But I did have a self-awareness to know that I'm not gonna stay in this bed. I'm not going to let my kids see me not able to get out of bed to take care of them, even if it was to fix cereal. I
sure.
was
Mhm,
determined
mhm.
to stay out of the bed. There was just something subconsciously that was like, "Don't give in, don't give in, don't give in to it," because I could have given into it really quickly.
Giving into it, you mean just giving up and
The
disappearing?
depression,
Mhm.
giving
Okay.
it and
Mhm.
just consuming myself with the thoughts, letting them overpower, and so by the time this night that we're talking about happens, I am worn out,
Mm.
mentally worn out, I'm physically worn out on top of just the normal tiredness. Depression tiredness is a whole 'nother level of tired. If you've ever experienced depression, you understand what I'm saying. It's you don't even have the energy to pick your hand up.
Mm.
It takes everything you have to open your eyes, and don't ask me a question to
Mhm.
'cause to talk is even m harder. I'm having to take care of another human being
Mm.
in this state, and it I think I was in that moment where I was just like, I'm tired, I'm done. I can't
Mm.
do this anymore." He woke up screaming from a nap, and it just snapped something in me. In that moment, this white hot rage just exploded within me, and
Mhm.
in that rage, the Lord just really held on to me and ripped that veil of lies away, and it was like this overflow of light just swept in and blew up all the shadows and darkness that I was
Mhm.
engulfed in. It
Mhm.
broke me. My husband walked in and found me on the floor sobbing. I had laid the baby in the middle of the bed because he wasn't rolling or anything. He was all
Mhm.
swaddled up and couldn't move. And I put him in the middle of our king size bed and just left him there. And I just sobbed on the floor.
Mm.
And I had to lay it at the Lord's feet. I had to lay myself. I had to lay my baby. I had to lay my thoughts. I had to lay the shame, the guilt. I had to lay it all at his feet because I was tired of holding it.
I love the imagery that you use in your book, A Beautiful War. You talk about the battlefield and the fact that this is not something you journeyed through alone. You also share in your book that there were physiological things going on in your body and your mind. The reality is that depression is also something physiologically happening inside our mind, manifested in our body that literally is beyond our control.
Mm.
Later down the road, tell us more about this, but you do end up going to the doctor and
Mhm.
having a conversation that leads to additional help.
And being a Christian too, you have that stigma. Yes, the Lord can heal me, but I really do need some medication. And
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
lot of people don't want to admit when they're on medication because they're like, if you prayed enough, the Lord could have healed you. Or why didn't the Lord heal me? Maybe I wasn't good enough. Or there's so many things that the enemy uses to keep us bound up and broken.
Mm.
We have to expose the lie for what it is.
Mm.
And again, we are human. The Lord made doctors. He made
Mhm.
surgeons. He made
Yes.
pharmacists. He made eye doctors to give us glasses so that we
Mhm.
can see,
Mhm. That's right.
so
Yep. Mm.
I have glasses too, and I need them to drive. Um,
We'll keep you with
um,
your glasses.
yeah. But the same way with medication, my body was chemically imbalanced and it was not self-regulating and it was not doing what it was supposed to be doing. And I needed medication. And my doctor was so gracious and so kind. And he knew me. I don't even like taking a Tylenol. And he's, I know you don't want to do this, but it's temporary.
Mm.
When he said it's temporary, for me, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I can do this because I don't want to have to be dependent on a medication for me. And I know there are some people that their bodies just don't regulate and they have to be on something all the time. I don't want people to think because I don't like it, mean that what they're doing is wrong. Every case is different. Even every case of postpartum or perinatal or any type of depression is different. Listen to your doctor and go with the recommendations that he gives for you for your body to get your body back on track because everyone's different. He was just very gracious. And so I felt
Well, I
really
think
confident
I
in that.
You said just a little bit ago that there is such a stigma, especially in Christian circles. Listeners, lean in and hear this clearly, that it is what worked for Amanda is not
Mhm.
necessarily going to work for you. Being in partnership with your
Mhm.
doctor to help
Mhm.
bring out the best outcome is one of the most important steps that you can take. There isn't any one size fits all treatment, nor is the healing journey the same for one of us over another.
Once the medication started kicking in, that kind of brain fog started to lift, and I was able to, for lack of a better like, see better. I was actually to see more and more out in front of me, and I was able to recognize triggers of the anxiety and the fear. I started to cut caffeine out because caffeine was a trigger for me. I had to start cutting TV shows that I had been watching for years,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
CSI and
Mhm.
Law and Order. I loved those shows, but I have not watched those shows in probably 10 years because it triggered something within me, and I did not want to give the enemy a foothold, and
Mhm.
so I had to change my diet. I quit drinking tea and Coke, which was
What?
so hard.
You're a
It
Southerner.
was
How can you quit?
I
Dai. I'm
it's
so
hard,
sorry.
but I have been
But
able to incorporate it all back in now, but I'm still very self-aware and very
Mhm.
conscious of when I might need to detox for a couple weeks, and I
Well,
listen to my body.
and that's the other piece. You are listening well to your body, to your mind,
Mhm.
and your spirit. And I love this beautiful partnership and connections. It's this holistic approach to what was actually going on inside of you. Now, I know that you also dove into community. You,
Yeah.
for a while, were trying to deal with this on your own. You were able to surround yourself with a community of people who could
Mhm.
support you and love you in a deeply dark and difficult time. Share with that woman out there who's feeling very alone, who feels like she has no place to go.
I had a great support system.
Mm,
My mother-in-law lived in an apartment out in our backyard.
mhm,
I could call her and be like, "Look, I just need a nap. I need you to come and sit." If I said, "I can't do it today, mom,"
mm,
she was
mhm.
able to be there and take care of him the way he needed to be taken
Oh,
care of,
what
in
grace.
those
That is
young
so
in
beautiful.
it really was,
Mm,
and with that was invaluable, and I know not everyone has that, but if you have a neighbor or a friend that you can say, "Hey, I just need you to come sit in this house with me so
mhm,
that I don't feel alone." Because even just having someone in the house did wonders for my
mm.
anxiety.
Sure.
Like, you don't have to tell them and spill your guts, but if you want to, I highly recommend having that safe person you can trust. The only way to expose the lies is to bring it out into the light,
Mm,
because the enemy operates in the darkness. Even if it's your doctor, if he's your only safe place,
mhm,
let it be your doctor, but
mhm.
talk to someone to get it out. When you begin to talk about it, when I told my husband I needed help, I didn't go into detail about what I'd almost
Sure.
done. He didn't know for months, and he didn't even know the extent of what I was dealing with on the depression level for probably a couple years.
Mhm.
When you vocalize it and verbalize it to someone, you're getting that yuck out, and it has to come out so that the wound can heal.
One of the lies we often wrestle with is we're okay, right?
Right.
I'm a happy mom. I've just had the baby I've been waiting for all my life and things are going well. That is a lie when
Because
it's
that's what's
not.
expected of you're expected to be happy and excited about
Yes.
this baby, and
Mhm.
sometimes you're not.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're just like, "This is hard, and this
Mhm.
sucks,
Yep.
and I'm not having fun. There are no rainbows and unicorns today." And that's okay.
Mhm.
That's okay to have those feelings.
Mhm.
But when it starts to get darker and darker,
Mm.
that's when you need to reach out to someone and
Yes.
say, "Hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I need to talk to someone." something's off.
That is a very practical step. What are some other ways of extending, nurturing grace to ourselves when we're having a hard day or in one of those days, like you would say to your mom, I just can't be mom today. I just can't do it today.
Some of the things I did were if I needed to cry, I cried.
Mm,
I didn't hold it in.
that's a big one.
If I wanted to be angry and bitter, I let myself feel those feelings, but I didn't stay there. I
Okay.
verbalized it to my husband or to a trusted friend and was like, "Look, I'm feeling like this today." And then they would speak the truth to that. They would never shame me. They would never be like, "Girl, those are crazy thoughts." The fear and the anxiety, that's not from the Lord. That is from the enemy.
Mm,
One of the things I had to start doing to combat those thoughts, because I really struggled with that. My
mm,
husband and the kids had gone to the movies, but I couldn't go because I was stuck at home with this baby that I really
mhm,
didn't even want. It that hurt me because I'm like, how can I feel this way? I
mm,
am his mother. Like, how horrible of me. And so I had those emotions, but in the healing process and in the healing journey with the Lord, He would reveal the things and then speak the truth. I had mentioned thinking my son was going to die. It wreaked havoc on me. Like, it made me physically ill. I would throw up, just have so much anxiety. It was unbearable. And one day after I had been on my medication for a while and I was seeing things clear and I was just having a moment with the Lord and I was just like, Lord, I'm so tired of feeling this way. I don't know what to do.
mm.
And I remember he was just like, "What would happen if Eli died?" And I was like, "I would be
Oh.
devastated." "What do you mean, what would happen?" And he said, "No, where would he be?" And I said, "He'd be in heaven with you."
Mm,
And then he just replied, "Isn't that the best place?" It was like something
mm,
broke in that moment. The weapon, the arrow that the poison arrow that the enemy had shot in me
yeah.
fell out and fell off, and the Lord just graciously covered that wound and healed it so beautifully that, yes, I would grieve and be devastated that my son had died, but at the same time, he would be in heaven.
Mm,
In that moment, that was no longer a weapon that the enemy could use to
mm.
torment me.
Mhm. It sounds like a big part of what you brought into your daily life was space for prayer. What did that look like for you? What were those conversations like?
They were anywhere and everywhere and
Great.
anytime.
I love it.
It's funny that I wrote this book, like, I was not an English major, I did
Mm.
not journal, I still don't journal. I have friends that love journaling and all of those things, but that's just not something I've
Just
ever
not your
done.
thing.
No, but those conversations, I think before the postpartum, I had grown up in church, I knew who Jesus I knew to pray, I knew about the scripture, but I had never had a relationship with him. And that night and that moment on the floor when I was broken, we began a relationship. I started having conversations with him in the car, in the shower, when I was feeding the baby, when I was doing dishes. It became an ongoing daily thing, almost 24/7, because that was the only thing that I could combat the attacks of the enemy with.
Mm,
And there were
mhm,
even days where all I could say is, "Jesus, I just need you, Jesus. I don't know why, but I just need you."
mm,
That was all the prayer
mhm.
looked like. It was in desperation, and he was always there
Right?
every time.
You have been very fortunate to have a great community around you, your mom especially, as she came in to
Mhm.
live with you all and take care of Dax and the rest of your family too. I'm a friend of someone who has postpartum depression. I
Mm.
am a sister, let's say, or an aunt. I am a neighbor of someone who is struggling in ways that seem beyond the typical mom struggles. How can I come alongside with grace?
I had a dear friend, we're still dear friends today. She was one of those trusted friends who would pray with me. She could tell when I was having a down day. But then I was able to either word vomit all the ugly things I was thinking or dealing with that day,
Mhm.
or say, "I'm not ready to talk about it right now, but thank you for seeing me in
Mm.
this." Yeah,
Yeah.
and it might look like just coming over and sitting with the
Mm.
per with
Mhm.
with the person. My mother-in-law would come over and she would say, "Give me the baby, go to Walmart." And I would literally push the buggy around Walmart for 2 hours with nothing in it, just, like, in a zombie zone, like, "I'm out of the house." So,
Mhm.
even being able to offer someone 30 minutes of silence or let them go sit outside in the sun. Sun works wonders. The sun is so healing. When I'm sitting in the sun, sun, I always feel the warmth wrap of the sun, Jesus,
Mhm.
son.
Mhm. We
You're
so
struggling, go
underestimate,
sit
don't we,
outside.
that just getting outside, taking a breath of fresh air. I remember when our sons were really small, I also struggled with postpartum depression, not quite as severely as you've had to go through, but I remember I called them my angel mamas, and they would literally call me up and tell me I'll be there in 15
Mhm.
minutes. They would sit, I would go for a walk by
Yeah.
myself for
Mhm.
15, 20, 30 minutes. No demands, no needs aside from my own outside, allowing God's beautiful world minister to my soul.
Right.
That's
Music,
beautiful.
man, music,
Mhm.
that was
That's a
a
good
game
one.
changer because there were often days where I didn't even have the mental capacity to read.
Mm,
And
mhm,
so to open the Bible or do a devotional was just not my capacity then.
mhm,
To put some music on and listen to what Jesus had to tell me through the music, that I was loved or that I was redeemed or that I was restored. Sometimes the only thing I could get through that day with was listening to
mm.
music.
Sure, sure. I want to hear about your relationship with Dax. You've been through a lot in 11 years with this precious kiddo, and I know he brings you great joy these days.
He and I are pretty inseparable.
Oh,
Um,
gosh, that
it
is just,
and
oh,
yeah, and it was like I said, in the beginning, it was not like that. I didn't even want
hmm
to hold him. Ooh, sorry. And as a mother, that's heart-wrenching to have those feelings towards your child. And I remember it was probably about he was probably about 4.5 or 5, and I was on the better end of the healing and feeling back to myself and pretty much back to normal. And I struggled with not bonding with him as a baby, and would that affect him later? I really struggled with that. And I remember when him and I were playing, we were sitting outside. I think we were playing with rocks or something. I don't remember. He's all boy, so we were probably digging in the dirt. And I remember the Holy Spirit just washed over me. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, bub, do you know how happy I am that Jesus gave you to me and how much I love you?" And the look on his face, it was like something broke off of him.
mm,
It was like the enemy had molded something onto him because of everything I had dealt with him in the beginning. But when I spoke that truth from the Lord over him and I was honest and raw in that, the enemy's arrow that was meant for
mm,
destruction fell off. That kid makes me laugh. God, he has a mind like no other 11-year-old. He came to me the other day and he said, "Mom, I need to set up a drop shipping account." I was like,
mm.
and he literally had created like this little mini business plan in his
Oh my
head
goodness,
and was
11.
like, if I have this by this, and by the time I'm in the eighth grade, and then by the time I'm a senior, I was like, well,
Wow. Well, he
if
could pay for college. Okay, that's good.
that'll work, that'll work. Um, but yeah, no, like
Mm,
he's sitting next to me, he's touching my leg, or he's giving me hugs, or he's kissing my
mm,
hand, or he's kissing my cheek. What I have seen the Lord do in his and I's relationship It is just, I look at him and I'm just like, wow, God.
So beautiful. This has definitely been a deep water conversation. I am sure we could probably talk for hours, but I want my listeners to connect with you and continue the conversation. Where can they find you and your book?
Everything's on my website, amandalscarborough.com. I'm also on Instagram at amanda.l.scarborough. My book available on Amazon, ebook, and paperback. And I'm also going to record the audiobook, so it'll also be available on
Wonderful.
audio. Yes.
That's terrific. Amanda, would you be willing to close us in a brief prayer?
Jesus, I just thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I pray for the woman who's listening, Lord, whether she's dealing with the depression or she is someone who's supporting someone in depression. I ask that you give them wisdom and knowledge on how to move forward to healing, Lord. Open their eyes, put people in their path to speak life into them, Lord,
Mhm.
to reveal the triggers that are weighing them down or have them bound up, Lord. Speak the truth that will combat the lies.
Mhm.
Lord, restore her and heal her and wrap your loving arms, Lord, to know that you are there with her and that you see her ready to walk this journey with her. In your name we pray. Amen.
Mm. Amen. Amanda, thank you so much, not just for your insight and wisdom, but thank you for sharing your heart.
Oh, God, it was my pleasure. That's been the main purpose of this, is to offer hope to someone who's in the darkness. There is hope, and his name is Jesus.
Thanks for joining our conversation today. If you find yourself among those sitting in sadness you just don't have words for, it just doesn't make any sense, what you think you should be thinking and feeling or saying or not saying, when those things don't match up, don't ignore it. Don't hide. Don't try to pretend it's something that it isn't. Because postpartum depression, it's real. And we all need to take it seriously. So talk to a friend, go to your doctor. Don't keep hidden what could be brought to wholeness. If you know someone who's struggling with perinatal or postpartum depression, then would you share this episode with them? If you're not already following our show, then be sure to subscribe. And if you haven't already done so, would you rate and review Living the Grace Life podcast so other listeners can grow in the grace life too? Until next time, live the grace life generously, friend. Grace for you, grace for them.